So Jesus has died, and his body's taken down by the cross, and along comes Joseph of Arimathea, a secret disciple of Jesus, and supported by Nicodemus, that same Nicodemus who came to see Jesus in the quiet of the night, who Jesus said, "You must be born again." The two of them take his body to a nearby tomb, and they embalm it with spices and wrap it in cloths. And a stone is rolled across the entrance, and the priests, conscious of what Jesus had been saying about dying and rising again, ask for a Roman guard to be put on the stone to guard it, and they have it sealed. Often Easter Saturday is viewed as this sort of lull in Passion Week between all of the excitement of what's going on and the crucifixion and Easter Sunday. I want at this point for us to look at something that you can call the case for Christ. There's a fantastic book that you can read called The Case for Christ. Jesus' death and resurrection is central to what we believe as Christians. And actually one of the most liberating things for us as Christians to realise is that actually what we believe is true. It can be factually you can make the argument for it being completely trustworthy. We don't have to believe we're following a myth. And let me give you this case for Christ, but I think it's Lee Strobel who sets this out. There are 5 arguments that people can put forward for what happens with the Easter story. And the first one is that people sometimes say that Jesus' resurrection was the swoon theory. In other words, that Jesus wasn't really dead, and that he'd simply lost consciousness on the cross, and in the cold of the tomb had sort of come back to life, and as a result he had rolled away the stone and gone on his merry way. To believe in something like that is not to understand a Roman crucifixion. The soldiers who carried out crucifixions were professionals, and the reality was, if you took someone down off the cross who wasn't really dead, then actually you had to take their place. So you're not going to do that. But flagellation, the whipping that a Roman soldier would endure, could kill someone in their own right. And we looked at how this whipping would happen with bone and flint and lumps of lead in the end. And it would have left Jesus so weak. We saw that Jesus was too weak to carry his own cross. The loss of blood, the crucifixion, and don't forget that they'd pierced his side and they'd seen blood and water flow. And that is a medical diagnosis of where the heart has exploded and the blood and water is flowing out of the cavity of the body. Jesus was in no fit state to roll away the stone. He was in no fit state to just, he was wrapped in bandages. To overcome that, it would have been impossible. And to overpower the guards who were there, it would not have been possible. So I think we can actually say there's sufficient evidence to deny the swoon theory. The second theory that people come up with is what's called the conspiracy theory, that actually what happened was Jesus' body was stolen. His disciples had come along and stolen it. To look at this, you have to understand a few things, that the tomb was in a public place. It was a well-known location. It was guarded 24 hours a day by professional soldiers, and the disciples were not professional soldiers. How would they overpower these guards that were on a rotational system posted to protect it? The disciples had scattered. They'd been in the Garden of Eden, in the Garden of Gethsemane, and they'd run for their lives. They were terrified. They were broken. They didn't understand what was going on. And why on earth would they have done it? All they had to do was produce the body. Someone just had to produce the body. And the history, the silence of history testifies to no body being produced. But you also have to look at the motivation. If somebody's going to invent a conspiracy theory, They're looking to gain from it, to profit from it, to get something out of it. But the disciples, all bar one of the remaining disciples were martyred for their faith. If they were going to create a conspiracy theory, then actually a conspiracy theory that they were going to die for doesn't make sense. The third theory is what you can call the deception theory or the hallucination theory, to say that the disciples were so distraught and so upset that they imagined, they hallucinated, and when they came up with the resurrection of Jesus. Well, you have to understand psychology and the way that hallucination works. And hallucinations are often individual occurrences. They're not group hallucinations. And we have accounted testimonies of Jesus appearing on one occasion to over 500 people. Jesus appears to his disciples as a group on a number of occasions, as well as to a number of other individuals. And the nature of the appearances are visual, they're auditory, they're tactile. Jesus eats with them, he touches them. There's a physical nature to it. And hallucinations, they pass in a moment, but these conversations that happen go on for a period of time. I think it's fair to say that they don't stack up to what hallucinations are. The fourth theory is that the account of the death and resurrection is just legend. Well, legends develop over hundreds of years, and they don't develop where you've got multiple eyewitnesses who are able at the time to attest to what they saw. And the New Testament is written in such a narrow time frame. Some of the earliest records we have are within just a couple of decades from Jesus' death and resurrection. It's not a time frame that allows legends to be created. Legends come from an oral tradition that are passed down from generation to generation. They're not attested within 30 years in writing from multiple sources. The news about Jesus is spread too fast and too quick. The earliest creeds of the church are appearing within 2 to 3 years of Jesus' death. This doesn't stack up. And if it was a legend, it doesn't explain the effect on the disciples who went on to be martyred. We can discount the legend theory. We can discount the deception, the hallucination theory. We can discount the conspiracy theory. And we can discount the swoon theory. And if you discount all those other theories that are possible, what you're left with is to say that actually, if it fits with the multiple eyewitnesses, it fits at the time, and it fits with what we can read through the book of Acts, there's a consistency and of accounts that happen, a transformation on the disciples' behaviour. As C.S. Lewis said, if you eliminate all of the other possibilities and something, what you're left with, you have to accept is the truth. As Christians, make no mistake, what we have here is trustworthy and true. So in this Passion Week, let's pause and let's worship that the death and resurrection of Jesus is central to what we believe and is totally trustworthy. Let's pause and evaluate that the truth of this reality can transform our lives. May I never lose the wonder of the cross. May I see it like the first time, standing as a sinner lost, undone by mercy and left speechless, watching wide-eyed at the cost. May I never lose the wonder of the cross.